Reflection, Chapter 18. Pain burst from Mulan's ankle as she ran to catch up with Shang, but she ignored it. The captain wasn't slowing down for her. He didn't even look back to make sure she was still behind him. "Shang," she called after him. "Shang, please, talk to me." Finally Shang rolled around, his red cape bright against the dead foliage. "Are you really Ping?" Mulan winced, both from her ankle and from Shang's question. "Who else would I be? You could be a demon. I wouldn't be able to tell." "I asked you to trust me," she said, limping. "Remember? In the tower of the last glance to home?" "I trust the Ping I trained," said Shang stubbornly. "The Ping I know wouldn't lie to me." Mulan didn't reply. How could she? Guilt gnawed at her. Deep down, she knew he was right. She had been lying to him, but how could she tell him the truth, knowing that he'd think of her if she did? "Look at me," she said. "I'm no demon." Shang sighed, looking worn and defeated. It is odd. I'd forgotten about it until now, but Chifu couldn't find any record of you either. He started looking into it during your training, but after I decided to send you home, he relinquished his search. Then everything happened so quickly. You and the rest of the troops improved, and we were called into battle. Shang, just tell me, Ping. Look me in the eye and tell me that your ancestors are wrong and simply didn't know about you. I'll never doubt you again." "I can't tell him the truth," she thought miserably. "What I did, stealing Baba's conscription notice and dressing up as him, was against the law. I could be executed for high treason, and Mama and Baba would be in trouble too." She pressed her head back against the closest tree, lifted her ankle to let it rest. "But if Shang trusts me, shouldn't I trust him?" She slid her back against the tree until she was almost sitting on the ground. What could she say? She valued Shang's trust. Ever since the first day she reported to duty, she'd looked up to him, first as a leader, then as a friend, and now... She let out a silent sigh and stole a glimpse at the captain. He didn't say anything, but she could feel the change in their friendship. He doubted her. She picked herself up, shuffled her feet against the dead leaves. "Who else would I be?" she said, laughing uneasily. "Ping," said Shang thinly. "It's a simple question. Are you, or aren't you, the son of Fa Zhu and Fa Li?" "I'm..." Mulan twisted her hands. She couldn't lie to him, not to his face like this. Yet she couldn't tell him the truth either. "I'm..." Shang backed away from her. "All I need is a yes or no." "Shang, I can explain," Mulan pleaded, but she could see from his eyes she'd lost him. He snapped a thick tree branch behind him, broke it in half with his fists. She'd never seen him so angry before, so hurt. "Who are you, then?" I'm... His eyes narrowed. "You say my father sent for you." Shang circled her. "But mortals can't come into the underworld. How are you here?" "I told you," Mulan said. I made a deal with King Yama. The ghost said King Yama couldn't find any mention of you in his book," Shang said, still gripping the broken tree branch tight in his fists. "Have you been lying to me, Ping? Or were you never Ping to begin with?" I... Mulan didn't know whether to be relieved or dismayed that Shishi reappeared for that instant, just that instant. The lion, completely oblivious to Mulan and Shang's argument, pounced out of the thicket, landing in front of the pair with a thud. "I thought you two would be farther along by now," he rebuked them. "This isn't a good time, Shishi," Shang said through his teeth. "We're in the middle of a discussion." "No time to talk," the lion answered. "My instincts were right. Niang Po is still looking for you, Li Shang. I found traces of her tea in the dirt not far from here. Before long, the area will be overrun with her demons. We must..." "Not now, Shishi," said Shang, seething. "Yes, now. She's eluded us. She could be anything or anyone." "Even Ping?" Shang said coldly. "What?" The lion's fur bristled. "What's going on here?" Nothing," Mulan stammered. Shang, we really should listen to She stopped, noticing Shang's eyes were as cold as ice. Her shoulders fell. Could you blame him? You're not who you said you were. Did either of you hear what I just said? Shi barked. Miang Po is looking for us, so get off your lumbering feet and run. Shang folded his arms and drew himself tall so he towered over Mulan. I'm not going anywhere until this imposter tells me who he really is. Imposter? The lion repeated, standing between the two. What is this nonsense? Come out with it, both of you. Ping's ancestors don't have any recollection of his existence, said Shang. Mulan stared at the ground. I always knew ghosts were trouble. Shi dug his paws into the dirt, clearly vexed with both of them. Ping's ancestors probably just haven't heard of him. I thought so too, Shang allowed, but Ping is hiding something. He glared at Mulan, and despite the hardness of his expression, there was a trace of disappointment in his eyes. At least this Ping. For all I know, the real Ping is still at camp, watching me die. I am the real Ping, Mulan insisted. She turned to Shi. Please tell him. A low grumble escaped the lion's throat. He looked left and right, taking in their surroundings. The trees echoed, whistling with the quiet wind. The boy is telling the truth, Li Shang. Your father sent him to guide you. He asked me to guide him here. I have been with him since. The arrogant guardian's face became wise and expressive, and now Mulan understood how he'd been seen General Li's trusted companion for so many years. If you want to doubt anyone, it should be me. I was your father's guardian for almost 30 years, yet I was unable to protect him from being killed by Shan Yu. Because of my failure, tragedy has befallen your family. Shi lowered his head, as if the jade pendant he wore weighed him down. I'd planned to seek you out, to protect you as your guardian next, but I was too late. Shang stiffened, his shoulders drew in tight, and Mulan could tell he was trying to hold back the emotion of remembering his father's death. Do not misunderstand me, said the lion. There was no dishonor in falling in battle. Not in your father's case, nor in yours. My shame is not with both of you died in battle. My shame is that I failed to protect you and your father, and I seek to salvage that little honor I have left. Your friend Ping, however, is different. At first, I thought he'd only promised to come to die you out of guilt, because you'd risk your life to save him. But I see now I was wrong with him. Shi's defense of her only made Mulan feel worse. The truth, that she was a woman, froze in her throat. Ping is a true friend, Shi continued. Do not let his silly ancestors muddle your thinking. Have more faith, Li Shang. Ping risked his own life to come down into the underworld. He battled hundreds, maybe even thousands of ghosts to seek an audience with King Yama in his throne room, and even convinced King Yama himself to give him a chance to save you. I know that, Shang said, shoulders drooping ever so slightly. You do? Shi huffed. Ping told me. Then, the lion growled, how can you be so ungrateful? If Ping cannot leave with you before sunrise, he will become King Yama's prisoner for all eternity. Only a true friend would make such a sacrifice. Shang fell silent. He stared hard onto the ground and wouldn't look up. His lips were drawn into a thin line. Your father was the same when he was young, Li Shang. Shi continued more gently now. He was so proud it became difficult for him to see past someone's flaws, but he learned over time, thanks to my help. The guardian inched closer to Shang. You have your father's pride. He was hard on you as a commander and a teacher and a father, and you are his son through and through. But that does not mean you should be hard on your friends, on the people you can trust and rely on. If Ping was a secret to hide, let him hide it. He has only proven himself to be trustworthy, so he must have his reasons. A shadow drifted over Shang's face, darkening his aura's shimmery blue light. He leaned against the tree for what felt like a long time. Finally, he lifted his head and walked over to Mulan. Whatever secret you have, Shang said solemnly, I trust you keep it for the right reason, and I will honor that. Behind him, Shi backed away to give him some space, and he nodded for Mulan to accept the captain's apology. But Mulan couldn't. Why couldn't she? She looked up. Shang's eyes burned with that intense earnestness she had grown to admire. That gaze ensnared her now. "He'll never trust me if he doesn't know the truth." She grimaced and squeezed her fists. "I can't lie to him anymore. Even if he hates me, he deserves to know." She opened her hands. "Shang, you've never lied once to me. She's right. You've been tough on me and the other soldiers back home, but it's always been to make us a team and to build trust among us." She bit her lower lip. A habit the village gossip had once told her was unladylike and unattractive. Strange. All her life she'd striven to become a proper young woman, to make her family proud of her. These past few months she'd spent doing the opposite, trying to pass as a man, a soldier. Her worst fear had been that she'd be caught impersonating someone who didn't exist. She'd never imagined she'd tell anyone of her own free will. She swallowed. "So you should know it's true. I'm not Ping." "If you're not Ping, then who are you?" Shang asked. "I'm..." Mulan sucked in her breath. Her voice shook, and she worried her heart might burst out of its armor. She sat down her sword, rubbed the sweat off her palms onto her bare arm. Then she reached for her hair and undid the knot. The black sheet of hair tumbled down, brushing past her shoulder blades. "My ancestors were right," she said, surprised by how calm her voice was. "My parents never had a son. There is no Ping." She raised her eyes to meet Shang's. "There is only Mulan."